Bonjour. In this video, we will discuss French phonetics. We will learn and practice nasal sounds, mute letters. We will also see what the liaison is, and we will make the difference between E and E in French. Let's go. Nasal sounds are basically because when you speak French, you want to embody that French character. Okay, you're not going to be your real self, you're going to be your French self, a French version of you. So you need to be a little grumpy, okay, just as the stereotype on French people is. So you're gonna sound like this, okay? So what is a nasal sound? It's usually a vowel combined with the N letter or sometimes the M letter. If I combine an O and an N together, this is going to sound like So the sound is created by a round shape on my lips, like an O, and then I add the congested nasal sound of N, like in c'est bon. It's good. It's good actually sounds very nasal. C'est bon. C'est bon. Your turn to practice. C'est bon. Okay, we also have the nasal sound of un. Un can be either UN or it can be AIN. For example, in the word le pain, the bread. Le pain. Your turn. Un. Le pain. Okay. We also have the sound en. So en is created by the combination of A and N. So it goes like this. En. So I open my mouth wider as if I was saying A, and then I close it a little bit to get that nasal sound. So if I say le restaurant, sounds like en. Le restaurant. Okay. Or if I say la France, it sounds nasal as well. Your turn to say la France. Okay. Now, you notice that when I say le restaurant in French, there is a final T that I don't pronounce. However, in English, you say the restaurant. So you hear that T. You say every letter, right? But in French, sometimes we have mute letters. So let's try to understand why a letter is going to be mute or not in French. So the rule of thumb is that basically if you have a consonant in a word in French, it needs a vowel behind it to make that consonant sound. So for example, if I say il est grand, he is tall, I don't have any vowel behind the final D of grand. So I'm going to ignore that D. And I'm just going to say il est grand, not il est grande or whatever. Il est grand. Your turn. Now, if this person is not male, it's not il, but it's elle, it's female, I add an E behind my adjective tall. So this time it becomes elle est grande. And because I have a vowel right after the D, this time I pronounce the D. So it sounds like elle est grande. Your turn. Oui, elle est grande. Il est grand. Elle est grande. Now let's take an example to recap the nasal sounds and the mute letters. I want to pronounce this sentence. How are you going to pronounce it? First, you have the sound ON on mon. Then you have the word PLAT, but there's nothing after the T, so I'm not going to pronounce it. It's going to be plat. Then EST in French just sounds like E. And then how am I going to pronounce the last word? You notice that there's a D, but no vowel behind. So it's just going to be froid, because by the way, O and I sounds like wa in French. So this sentence is going to sound like mon plat est froid. Your turn to pronounce it. Excellent. Mon plat est froid. Now let's say that instead of having a meal that is called mon plat est froid, I have a soup that is hot. So this is the sentence we're going to practice pronouncing now. This time, there is an E after the P on the second word. So I'm going to pronounce that P, and it's going to be ma soupe. And you see that there's also an E after the D on the last word. So the D is going to be pronounced as well. It's going to sound like ma soupe est chaude. My soup is hot. Ma soupe est chaude. Your turn to say it. Awesome. Ma soupe est chaude. Now let's see how this liaison thing operates in French. Une liaison is a connection between two words. Usually there is a final consonant on one word, and then the word that is right after begins with a vowel. And in French, what matters most is the way things sound. We want the flow, the overall sound of the sentence to be smooth and connected, okay? So this is why we're going to make a link between those two words. So if I have these two words, un and enfant, by the way, maximum nasal sounds right here, right? So I have un and enfant, but I'm going to connect those two because the problem is it sounds a little too cut off, a little too chopped in French. So we need to make this liaison in between those two. And it's going to sound way smoother now. It's going to be un enfant, un enfant. Your turn to say it. Un enfant. Now, instead of having one child, let's say the children. Les enfants. This time I'm going to connect the S and the en sound together. But I'm not going to say les enfants. I'm going to make a Z sound connection. So it's going to sound like this. Les enfants. Your turn to practice. Les enfants. That's right. Now let's discuss the difference between the sound E and the sound E in French. This can be confusing if you're a native Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, or if you're fluent or familiar with those languages, because in these other Latin languages, the E letter always sounds like E. So that's something that can pop up in your mind as this E sound when you see an E letter in French. However, in French, if you just have a plain E with no accent mark on it, it's going to sound like E. Very dry and very pessimistic, grumpy sound again, okay? E. Your turn to say E. Okay. However, if you have any accent mark on top of that E, then it's going to sound like E. So you kind of put up a little more smile on this. E. Yes. E. Your turn to say it. Okay. Let's practice on the word the baby. Le bébé. I say E on le for the, and then because I have accent marks on the two other E's on bébé, then I sound like E. Le bébé. Your turn. Excellent. Let's say the word bike, and the bike actually. Le vélo. Your turn. Excellent. Thank you so much for joining this video, and see you soon for more French. Au revoir.